When moving forward seems too much, when you feel totally out of touch, hope is slipping out the door. You find yourself curled on the floor. The thoughts swirl around all jumbled and why is this brain so darkly obsessed? I've seen, I've never confessed, haven't told a soul I have pressed. The gentle whisper, remember rainbow, follow, breathe deep, long tight. Your hope will return, shine, embrace that past in this peace. That your love.
Hello, hello there. It's really good to be back. And today I want to introduce you to someone I only really got to know this January while I was at Podfest. I did see him remotely last year at Podfest, but I actually got to embrace him IRL this year. Aaron Gibson, it's wonderful to have you here.
Pleasure is mine, milady. Thank you so much for having me.
It's just, I am super excited because one, I have to tell you, to the audience, that it's just so nice. He always calls me milady, and it makes me feel special. And there's nothing nicer than someone who just gives you a little lift, which is awesome. Just need you to know that, Aaron. It's refreshing. It's lovely. It harkens back to a different time. And I get a little thrill every time you do that. So thank you.
Everyone deserves that respect. It's good.
And you are very respectful. And I believe that I need to start this by saying, I believe thank you for your service. That is super important to me. I come from a military family, and these things are so critically important in our world today. It is so fraught with everything and anything that is not wholesome, that I think it's really important that we make sure that we convey to those around us how much we appreciate them, thank them for their service. All of our first responders, our military, absolutely critical. And not going to be preachy here, but it just so happens that we do our groceries on a Thursday morning. This is going somewhere. And the firemen, there's usually 3 or 4 trucks. They get together and do their groceries Thursday morning. And there's a rotation of them that come through. I make a point every Thursday of thanking those that come in because all of you do such tough jobs. And I have all this freedom and I'm alive. And I was rescued by ambulance drivers and yada. So if they matter to you, if you think about it, or if I can press you to think about it, the next time you see somebody with a veteran plate, next time you see a first responder, can you just please say thank you? And that's Glamraw's little push for today. On that note, let's get back to our amazing guest. Aaron, I'd love you to give our audience a little bit of information about who you are and all the amazing things you do, because he really does.
Oh, you humble me, milady. And I'm a modest soul. I'm somebody that has paved their way up. I served a term with the military. I worked for corporate. I myself am a technical trainer by day, and during the evening, I am a social media content creator and producer at night. I produce 4 live streams now, 2 global award-winning shows with my brother Brian Schulman and Nancy Deborah Barrows, and then my baby sister's show, Nick, Never in Control, Nicole and Guy Galindo's show, and then my own show. And the show was basically created about fundamental pillars throughout my journey and my
Mm.
path. And so during the evening, I have with Aaron Gibson's Soul Man Live on Fridays, which is a late night mental health talk show. And it's like a mix between, and much respect out there, it's like a mix of Jimmy Fallon meets mental health. We have a lot of fun. We hype you up. We make sure that you're embracing that. Not everybody has a great Friday, but we're going to do our damnedest to make sure that you get a good Friday under you. And if you listen to some of the music, all the music
I
now
should
that
say
I
the music's really good.
thank you so much. And I wanted to give you a shout out too, because as soon as your intro came on, I seen the lyrics by Elaine, and I was like, you've written your own work as well. So I celebrate you in that. That made me really happy to see in that intro and a beautiful intro as well. The other side of Aaron Gibson Soul Man Live live stream is now we've moved. I just released the news that we're now moving into productions. I'm offering some of my services out there for people that want to create their intros and start to learn a little bit more about the behind the scenes work. I'm not, you wouldn't believe it. And I know it's the way that things work on LinkedIn and YouTube and all that other jazz, but you start to build a circle and you start going bigger places. And when you start going those bigger places, you start having a little bit more impact out in the world. And so what I did was I created a show based off of my life, which was a son that has gone through an alcoholic father, seen domestic violence within my home. I served a term in the military. I had a great football lifetime kind of gig going for me back in high school. Got married at a very early age, got married at the age of 25 to start my life there, but realized that through all the things that I've been doing, that after the military, where you're a finely honed machine and every gear has its purpose and it needs to still stay well oiled. And we don't lie because if you lie, there's putting those with those people, you can put those people in jeopardy and potentially lose a life. So you don't lie. And it starts to become almost a trigger when people are false with you. And so I went through a lot of stuff. I did a tour of duty overseas in Bosnia, Herzegovina, seen a lot, lived through a lot. The environment there is, there's a lot of recovery. There's a lot of healing that has to happen in that area. But I got out of the military and started in my pursuit into HVAC. Spent quite a bit of time learning, and because of my attention to detail, found that I adapted well to it. I like the fact that my patients didn't talk back to me. It's a furnace or an air conditioner. I get to diagnose you and you can't talk back to me kind of idea. But all meanwhile going through a lot of challenges in the background of, again, my mental health and not even realizing at that point that I was struggling with mental health. We get this kind of, I feel we get this kind of facade that puts over our eyes. And depending on our culture and our backgrounds and our beliefs that we're culturalized with as children, we don't start to really ask the questions until we start out on our own. When we start getting put into some more challenging situations and even traumatic situations and start to really look back and go like, why am I so angry all the time? Why am I not feeling like I want to roll out of bed and just get on with my day? Why is it such a struggle? And why do I feel so alone all the time with this? Why does it seem like everybody with around me seems to just be fantastically, magically wonderful and special?
I don't know exactly how much younger than me you are, but you probably had the internet since a relatively young age.
Oh, I'm a Gen X baby.
Okay.
I was born in 76, so I'm 49 years old.
Okay. Okay. You're younger than my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah. Gen X. So, yeah. So you've had more connection than we did, which is a double edged sword. It can be really good, but it can be really bad. And forever, there have been those of us who immediately have that feeling of aloneness no matter what. And it's not It's not related to one culture. It's in all cultures. It just plays out a little differently depending on what those cultural mores are that you were brought up with. As a Scot person, you don't air your dirty laundry. You don't tell tales out of school, which really means anything that's within the home, you don't take outside. And everybody has a stiff upper lip, or they're supposed to. And that we now know not the way for people to be because it makes you feel even more alone. And there were so many things as a child that were taboo that as you came along, Gen X came along and started getting rid of those taboos. As a young teen, I can remember my daughter, I would get upset and she'd tell me things because there's only one thing, there was only one rule in our house. I will stand behind you. God help you if you were a murderer. It will break my heart, but I will be there. I love you. I am your mother. Do not lie. That is the one thing. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know why that was such a big deal for me. But anything else, I will give anyone a second chance. Lie to me and you almost don't exist anymore. Which is, it's funny that you said it. And I was like, oh, wow, that's so interesting. Because we do. We think we're alone. We think we're the only one. It's a very specific form of tunnel vision because we are outgoing. We are often the life of the party. We are the people that look out for everyone else, that make sure everybody else is doing well. But no one can penetrate that bubble of aloneness. It's some kind of weird armor, I believe.
It's I feel, and I'm by no means, for me, and part of the aspect of my show that I like to bring to the table is the fact that I'm a patient of mental health. I've gone through 7 years of therapy, and the benefits of it, there was when we were growing up, you're calling it exactly as it was. Gen X time or the '80s, it was swept under the carpet. You didn't bring your dirty laundry to the table. Everything was, again, a magical lollipop and gumdrop world that, "Oh, look, this is my," it's about a status thing, I feel.
Yeah.
It was about status back then a
Yeah.
lot of the time.
Yeah.
And what we were falsely led to believe is that the more that we try to suppress these things rather than just owning it and moving on, the more that they sit under our surface and fester. And then years later, decades later, they're coming to the surface and you're angry at the smallest little thing and you can't figure it out why. And it may not be the biggest thing in the world, but your mind is telling you that. And that's where it gets into it. And the big thing that I feel we circle around is that mindset. If you've been cultured and patterned into this way, how do you even, like I said earlier, I didn't recognize. I came out of the military. I was set. I had protocols, regiments.
Yeah.
This is how I operate. This is what I do every morning. And we stay in that finally set pattern and not ever deviate from it because it works for us rather than going, okay, it works for us, but is it healthy?
Yeah. Yeah. And unlike you and unlike most people, I have never been to therapy. However, at 12 years of age, I started volunteering in a very huge facility. It was called Rideau Regional Hospital School. And by the time I was 15, the Ontario government gave them a special dispensation to have me work there for the summer. And the other people were all 18 and 19 years of age. The things I saw there are not things a 15-year-old should see, or a 14 or 13-year-old. And it forced me to shut up even more because back then there was the possibility of being locked up very easily. Even, and I've said this on the show so many times, people in the next generation X and millennials and Gen Z, they They don't have the weight of the poor choices in names of teams and in songs. There was a song that was called "They're Coming to Take You Away."
Oh,
Go, go,
he
go
to the funny
to the
farm.
funny farm.
That was
Where,
one of my favorite songs growing up as a kid.
yeah, where everything's beautiful all the time and da da da. First of all, do you know there is no music? There are no instruments to that. Absolutely none. But that song and working in that place and seeing electroshock therapy and the aftermath and seeing a young boy I went to school with suddenly be there as an inmate was mind blowing in all the wrong ways. So I totally understand the aloneness thing and the keeping it to yourself. I didn't have the benefit of being in the military, but I lived in a military household. So things
That's
were,
just as good.
yeah,
That's
were
just as
very
good.
regimented. And rightly, I don't complain about that. I complain about the school I was in. Went to a convent school. My parents were very adamant that I would go to a Catholic school, and it was paid back. You you couldn't go after grade 9 without being paid, and I tried everything in my power to have them, "No, save human beings. I want to go to public school." All of these pieces stood in for therapy back then, and then when I got to adulthood and much older, I teamed up with a spiritual mentor, and I am no longer religious, I am spiritual, and that's a big difference for me. Were your family religious?
So I'm as transparent and genuine, as authentic as you can get. I was born Roman Catholic, however, non-practicing, and I am very much spiritual as well. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with autism. So I'm referred to as an SB1, so I'm the one of the levels up where again certain things trigger me and not recognizing that and going through all that. Yeah, so you start to recognize a lot of the things that you're talking about, which is again, what is the perspective that you were given growing up? Is it the right perspective, and are you questioning it? Are you doing your research?
Yeah,
Right? Because we get to that level where we start off, it's crazy the way that we look off how most lifestyles start. We start off as children, we want to be superheroes, we want to be cartoon characters, we want to be this and that. And then we aspire to, again, look at what our parents are doing. When we start to get that height level, we're like, okay, what's our mom and dad doing? Are they cooking? Are they cleaning? Are they home care? You start getting intrigued. And then you're like, okay, where do I fit into this world?
mm,
You get into the teens, you're like, where do I fit into this world? What is my goal here in this? What is my journey going to be? Am I going to be a superstar, or am I going to be just somebody that's just going to just be? And what's wrong with that? Some people just want to live a simple and easy life. A lot of us do.
absolutely, and it's interesting when you put it like that because I saw lots of people around me that were doing that. They were looking at their parents, what they did. They were looking at what was open to them. In my day, as a woman, it was surely limited what we knew of. And it's limited by what your parents know. My parents were immigrants, okay? My father was in the British Air Force before we came here, and he joined the Canadian Air Force when we got here. My mother worked in an office. I, for the longest time, had no idea what she did. But later on, she worked in libraries and she made her with a financial systems analyst for Energy Mines and Resources Canada and traveled across the country doing that kind of thing. Those were not things that they ever told us were available because they could only see what they knew. You could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, you could be an airline stewardess. And my father did not want me to go into the military. because he was afraid for me. And things back then, during the Vietnam War, it was iffy with Canada joining or whatever. And so, with that very limited amount of choices, a lot of people that I talked to were in the same boat. What do we do? And it was shortly after Woodstock, and people were a little more laissez-faire about what they were going to do. You came along, and in the early 80s and even the late 70s and early 80s, your parents, our generation, were so busy trying to make sure you had more than we did.
Yeah. The legacy continues, right? Just make
Yes.
sure that the next
Yeah.
generation survives.
Yeah. And that, I'm sure that played a part in how you feel. I have never been diagnosed, but I firmly believe I have ADHD. As you said, for all the same reasons. The
And you
things
find out
that,
later on, but it starts to make sense when you start to
oh my God.
investigate the
Yeah.
properties behind it. And now I'm able to, now that I did learn, it sucks that I learned it. I wish I could have known this. I would have
Yeah.
made a lot better choices back, but we again came through a culture. And even think about the culture that you just brought up. See, I'm a Gen X baby. So
Yeah.
we were feral children that raised each other, that drank the hose water, and
Yeah.
like we did some crazy stuff. We, but we also paid attention and we listened. And when you're growing up during that time, there was no iPhones. If you were lucky enough, maybe your family could afford a laser disc player that might have been portable, but it was probably the size of a tank going
Yeah.
into your vehicle,
Yeah.
right? We had the window to stare out. And we had a lot of times where there was a lot of silence, and there was a lot of times where there wasn't silence. But we look back at, again, that culture, and just from what you described, I'm a mama's boy. I won't lie. I'm a mama's boy. I learned a lot from my mom growing up, and I also watched on how she was treated because that's what every young boy wants to do is protect their mom. And the way that I was watching women being treated out in the workforce, they were still being looked down upon. There should have been a lot more opportunities because again, everybody's had a mom. It may not have been the greatest mom, but there has been somebody that has brought you into this world, and the majority work towards raising your young on to survive after you're gone. That is your mission. That is your role as a parent. But I remember how you ladies had to, they were forcing magazines down your throats on how you were expected to look and how you were expected to talk. And my mom, bless her heart, and I'm so grateful for it because she helped to create the equalitarian view that I have now, which is, you know what? You can look down your nose. We are still just as capable. And I watched my mom do some miraculous things. And I watched a lot of amazing women that I was with in the infantry and during the army. These were some of the first women coming through in the infantry during my time that were out marching and out carrying a lot of other guys that were falling to the wayside. So it's not the shell that determines you, it's your core. Where's your fire? Where are you going? What is going to drive you forward?
And I can honestly say I was in a very different world from most people because from 16 to 20, I didn't exist from the time my friend died. And from 20, when I had my accident, the next 15 years were just trying to become a person again. And it was just, I guess, how my brain worked. I never was one to compete or push a feminist agenda because I didn't look at men or women as any different. It was either you can do the job or you can't. And I was more of an entrepreneur. I was an interior decorator. And when I could work, because there were long times where I couldn't, it never occurred to me that if I work, and I was often commission based because I was doing interiors, and it's a very different setup in the entrepreneur world than it is in corporate. My health and my continued surgeries and stuff made it impossible for me to get a corporate job because sometimes I'd last a few weeks, sometimes it'd be a month and then 4 months in the hospital. Nobody's gonna hold a job that long. Not even today. It's just not the thing. So it made it a little different. It made it different for my son too, because like you, although he's younger, he's I guess the beginning of the millennials. He's almost 10 years younger than his sister. And he saw me like pushing my own path, just going forward. There was none of what a lot of my friends went through that your mom would have seen in working and in seeing the difference between a man and a woman. But the funny thing is, as traditional, as old school as my parents were, the reason they came to Canada was because my mom and dad wanted their marriage to be equal. And they didn't want to go through the same crap that they went through in Scotland because that's not how marriage was looked on.
Different culture, different behaviors, different patterns.
And they came here. Now, I say very tongue in cheek. My father was very helpful to my mother, but all the curtains in the house had to be closed. He would do the dishes, he would vacuum, he would do all that. But the place had to be locked up like a vault because no one could see him doing that. And him and I talked about that just a couple of years ago, and he was looking back and thinking it was funny, but it was the norm because he couldn't go to the mess and tell people that's what he did on a Saturday morning. That just went, and he was not one to go to the mess much because my father didn't swear. My father did not believe in off-color jokes. He was such a straight arrow, both my mom and my dad. I am nothing like them, absolutely nothing like them. But it was, you learn through what you live. And it really it gave me, I thought, some really good markers, some not so good ones too, but some really good markers for taking the measure of a person in understanding that there are so many different people in the world. And that's a good thing.
It's a beautiful thing. I love going to new places and meeting new people. And the places that I've been right off the hop, right? When I went to Jamaica, first time I ever got a
Yeah.
chance to go to Jamaica, which was again a gift. I met a man there, and his name was Mr. Brown, and just cut from the same cloth. Kind, gentle, thoughtful, considerate, and responsive. Like not just somebody going through the motions. Like he was living his job, and his job was to drive us around to show us the 10 most haunted places in Jamaica,
Hmm.
which was a fantastic trip. But he made you feel like family in a
Yeah.
very short amount of time and comfortable and safe. And when you're traveling, that's prime,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
especially
It,
when you see the genuine care and concern. It's like, bathroom? Okay, we're stopping it. No, it's no, you're going to have to wait until the next town. It's no, we're stopping. Everybody, this is what we're going to do.
and doesn't it make a world of difference in your whole trip? Or it, it doesn't even matter if it's like an Uber or you go into a restaurant and the person who's serving you or the owner of the restaurant is really involved in what they're serving you. They want to be sure that you're enjoying what they're giving you. A group of us went on a cruise just a few years ago, 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And we went to Turks and Caicos. Before we went, one of my friends said, let's not take the cruise line trip. Let's find one on our own because they cruise an awful lot all around the world. But yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So we found a little company in Turks and Caicos, and it was supposed to be a 3-hour tour where they would show us there's a reef off Turks and Caicos and take us to see some stingrays and go to this little island, and there would be Uh, they make you lunch, and then you can swim and snorkel, blah, blah, blah. And we go and we get to this beach, and there is a little boat that I don't think it was 18 feet. Okay. There's 12 or 13 of us getting on this boat. And as I don't walk well. And the young man was so helpful. Before I could say boo, he had put me on the boat. No, you need anything. They were so attentive to us. We ended up being with this little boat, with the boat people for almost 6 hours. They took us, they had a couple of guys on that were in our group diving for conchs, and those conchs are what they had in a beautiful ceviche that they made on the beach. The group from a bunch of charters came by on these big catamaran. 70 of them got off the island, walked into the water, saw a stingray, took a walk, went up this hill, came back down, got on the boat, and left. I don't think they were there 20 minutes. They paid more than we did. We had a phenomenal time. They kept making us rum punch. I got to snorkel and had help getting back in the boat, which was awesome. And got to snorkel with a shark, which was really cool. But they were so invested. So I wrote them a page review on Google, and they answered it. But I was talking to the young man before we got off, and it's their family. Their family does it. It's their little boat, and they love what they do. And it was one of the best trips I have ever had in my life. And I've been on a lot of trips, but the fact that they cared, that they so loved what they were doing, and why I'm telling you this whole story is because I want the audience to know this is what I saw with Aaron from the first moment I met him. And we were 4 days, 5 days. How long were we there?
I think it was 4 days. I think we
4
were
days.
there for 4 days.
So I saw you every one of those days. You never missed a chance to say hello to somebody. You never missed a chance to be kind. And just watching you, for me, was a joy.
Well, thank
And
you.
that level of genuine is absolutely priceless. And I just want to say thank you. That's the other reason I wanted you on here, because we don't get to interact with 100% genuine people every single day. And I believe there's at least one, if not 2 or 3 out there for every one of us. You just open your eyes. Just open your heart just a little, and you'll find someone. Because I know for a fact now, none of us are alone.
Beautifully said.
Thank
Thank you for that. I'm humbled.
you. You humbled me because watching you made me want to do better.
That is, I think, the nicest thing I've ever heard anybody say.
Oh,
So
well,
thank you. And then we get me all verklempt here.
it
And
is.
I'm not afraid of crying on screen either, but and that's because I spent over 40 years of my life suppressing that stuff. If I was like you, I was keep it under the carpet. We're men. We don't cry. We don't do. And you know what? Hey, this is the Gen X era here. So you know what? FAFO. You're gonna find out. Right?
Oh, I love that. I love that. And is it not a super relief to you when you let down those guards It's like it must be like taking off a suit of armor.
It literally, think of it like a balloon, giant hot air balloon. You've got all of these weights that are sitting on you that you don't even know are holding you down. And as you start to release each one, you're getting lighter and lighter. And when you release the weight, a lot of all, that's when your balloon starts to fly. And that's when new opportunities, it's exactly what's happened for me doing what I'm doing. 3.5 years, it's been a phenomenal growth. And it's just from being authentic, genuine, and showing up for people with support, not looking for anything in return.
No,
It's just to be kind onto another soul.
and I can confirm that totally because you don't go asking for anything. And that in itself is something special. When I'm very analytical, I always have been, like to know how and why things work.
I love that.
And just, it's what is that? Oh, okay. And for me, I think it's so fascinating to see the difference in those that really are genuine and that give and give and how they are genuinely perceived. Because for so long, so much that we get bombarded with tells us that, yeah, no, the good get pushed to the side and the wrong wins because it's got more money or blah, blah, blah. I don't believe that. I don't believe it because I see, okay, all of those who are real and who are living their truth. And I think that's the difference. Okay. It's one thing to be real and to put yourself out there genuinely. But if you're not living your truth, if you're simply wearing it, there's a big divide there. And there's a lot of people that they just haven't got to the place where they are living their truth. They're still in the wearing it stage. And hey,
And
some of
that
us are,
mindset.
yeah,
It's that mindset.
it really is. And I know I've said for years I'm a very slow learner. I'm one that came to the party relatively late. But the fact is, I did get,
You the fact is that you're learning,
yeah,
where most people are just like, "Ah, whatever." Ignorance. There's a lot of ignorance there.
oh, and there's so much to learn. Like,
There
I
is.
don't know how anyone can close themselves off from learning. Every day I learn something. And quite often I learn the same thing over and over again. And that if you don't take the lesson the first few times, it gets a little more forward. But all joking aside, I think it behooves you and your own inner joy to try and improve yourself 1% a day, to try and learn something new, do something new, go somewhere new. Just try it. No,
Or
you
just be
can't. No, you don't.
conscientious of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Just even
And
being conscientious of it works. That's still
yeah.
a step.
Yeah. And that's something I think a lot of people take for granted. You have to have gone through trauma to come to the understanding that living in the moment is all you've got. It really is. It'll be great if the future is good. I'm not there yet, so I don't have time for that. I have to be here. Because if we're not here, we're missing this. And I think that's a crime against yourself if you don't stay present in your own life.
And in fairness, though, there is some that, depending on what, there's some out there with mental illness that they're stuck in a rut. They can't even get to that step. That's where it comes beneficial to start to surround yourself with people that,
Yes.
in the words of my sister, Nancy Deborah Barrows, seeing her loved and valued. Like that struck home huge for me when I first met her, and the power of that that I carry forward into this day, and that the learnings I've taken from her are applied to my world every day. It makes a world of difference.
But she does live in those moments. And we
She
can't
lives in
do
those
it.
moments.
Yeah, we can't do it all the time. It's not possible. But it's your aspiration to do, I think, that matters more even than being continuously able to do it. When we actively go for joy and happiness, it doesn't mean that every moment's going to be wonderful. There are still going to be a few bits in our life. It is. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with being a human. Humans by nature are comparative. So you can't really appreciate the good unless there's some yucky that you can go, okay, this is really good. And I think we have to take those yucky bits with a grain of salt. And the most important thing, in my estimation, is being able to laugh at yourself. Because if we take ourselves too seriously, then everything's like a chore. You have to be able to laugh at yourself. And that's, I think, a much better form of comedy than laughing at others.
100%.
So, what's on the horizon for you?
What's on the horizon for me? I've got to scramble or I shouldn't say scramble. I got to get back to scheduling the fall season for our fall guests for Soul Man Live. It'll be the last half of season 3. And then we'll start looking at season 4 and starting to get the lineup ready for all the new guests they're going to be coming on to the show. And it's everyday people sharing a little journey about their life. And if there's something there is a great takeaway that will help you to make that change, then my job is done.
That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. I'm looking forward to hearing your next season and maybe taking a nap one Friday so that I could actually make it to the show more than once.
And you know what? That's the thing about the show. There is replay out there. If you want to watch it at your own leisure, it's a show up when you can. It's never any pressure to show up. If you want to be there, you'll be there. And if you want to watch it later, then you watch it later. But we all have worlds to live and lives to maintain. So just be you. That's the
Oh,
best thing you
yeah.
can do.
But sometimes it's just so nice to be in the atmosphere goes on.
It
Because,
is a fun time.
yeah, and you can't recreate that in a ring. Not the
True.
same.
It's true. I get you.
They're still good, but it's just not the same.
Yeah. Safe space. Safe space.
Yeah.
Something we didn't have in the 80s.
No.
You never even heard those words. If you were
Oh my
talking
God.
space in the 80s, it was usually in regards to a space shuttle launch. That was it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Nobody had their personal space at all back then. So I want to know, because you are an absolute font of wisdom, and because I enjoy talking to you, what would you suggest to our audience as a little tip, a tweak, something that you use on a regular basis to sort of either keep you grounded or keep you going or bring that joy into your life? Any little tip that you use?
So I have a thing. It's called, we take them all the time, but we just forget the other half, which is a mental health break. A mental health break is what I started to refer to my little breaks as. It was a moment to go back and not only rest physically sitting down, but also give my mind a break from the adversities going on in the workday. So if you have something that really speaks volumes to you, for me, when I was homeless and I was fighting through to get myself forward again, it was my son that was my deep core. It's what I refer to as my Phoenix fire. That's why Phoenixes are a big part of my show as well,
Yeah.
which is, again, what is it? What is in your core? What is going to drive you forward? Some people out there don't have a child to drive them forward in that
Yeah.
aspect. So where do they go to? That is when the big thing that I want to always encourage is one, reflect that you have the ability to do this change. It's not going to be an easy change, but the one thing that's going to be the catalyst that makes that change is reaching out. It is going to be the hardest thing that you ever do, but it'll also be the biggest reward that your life has ever seen. And it's exactly what has happened for me. I am living proof of that and grateful for it every day. I'm grateful for all the bad things because that's how we learn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know someone was talking the other day about if you had your life to live over, what would you change?
Not a damn thing.
Exactly my answer. Yeah. Because we wouldn't be the people we are now.
Exactly.
And I think these two are pretty decent. I have, I'm going to say, I've taken enough of your time for today.
We make that time for everybody. You've never taken too much of my time.
Well, I'm only sorry that I can't hug you.
Big girly hugs. Anyways, I'm going to go right through the
You
screen.
give great hug. You give great
Anyway.
hug. You really do. I prefer you without the clown hair, though.
That's my Mad Hatter hat. That's when I'm doing Voice Your Vibe. When I'm producing for Voice Your Vibe, it was a thing that I started with them because I love to just throw my family off, right? When they're trying to
Yep.
focus. And sometimes their focus would be off. And so to counter that, I would blow their focus and they would get refocused. Love you, Brian and Nancy. Thanks for putting up.
Yes, I
Thunder.
love you too, Brian and Nancy. And I've seen it where your voice survived. You popped in with that lovely hair hat. And yeah, the whole vibe changed, which I think is absolutely wonderful. All of Aaron's information will be below with the show notes and how you can get a hold of him, everything to do with his podcast. Notice I said with that S on the end. I thank you for being here. I thank you for being a part of the show. And as per usual, I say, please make the most of your today every day. Thank you, Aaron, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here for another inspiring episode of Suicide Zen Forgiveness. We appreciate you tuning in. Please subscribe and download on your favorite service and check out SZF's YouTube channel or Facebook community. If you have the chance to leave a 5-star rating or review, it'd be greatly appreciated. Please refer this to a friend you know who may benefit from the hope and inspiration from our guests. Suicide Zen Forgiveness was brought to you by the following sponsors. Truel Social Media, the digital integration specialists. Let them get you rocking page 1 in the search results. Canada's keynote humorist Judy Croon, motivational speaker, comedian, author, and stand-up coach at Second City, Judy has been involved for over a decade in the City Street Outreach Program in Toronto. Do you have a story to share? Do you know someone you think would be a great guest? Please go to szf42.com. And for our American listeners, that's scf42.com. Thank you for listening. And we
Prepare. Give hope because you met